Good afternoon and welcome. We are all together here. It was only a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, that we were here to mark the burial of the 36 people that we are commemorating today. It was a cold, wintry night during COVID, and a few marvelous souls, including Simone, who's with us again today, we're here to commemorate the reinterment of the 36 individuals who were found underneath the footprint of Oakwood Cemetery Chapel in 2016. So today is another journey, another post on our journey in commemorating the 36, actually it was a total of 38 individuals who we found. 36 we were able to reinter. My name is Laura Esparza, and I am Division Manager of Museums and Cultural Programs for the Austin Parks and Recreation Department. I would love to recognize our Department Director who's here today, Kimberly McNeely. Thank you, Kimberly. Oakwood Cemetery Chapel was dedicated as an interpretive site for this cemetery in 2019, and as such, it serves as a museum, a research center, and a visitor services site for all who want to know more about Austin's oldest municipal cemetery. I am also 40% Huahuitecan. And I would like to welcome you to my ancestral land. Home of the Tonkawa, the Apache, the Isleta del Pueblo, the Lipan Apache, the Texas Band of Yaqui Indians, and other tribes who moved through this property, this land. It is important to understand the long history that has brought us to reside on this land and to seek to acknowledge our place within that history. Oakwood Cemetery was founded in 1839, same year City of Austin was established. The first burial here is understood to be of an enslaved man. Over time, it grew to a 40-acre cemetery with over 23,000 burials. The historic colored grounds, as we now call this 3-acre section behind me, was segregated by race and class. This we know. This area is predominantly African American, with approximately 3,000 people buried here with no headstones, and for many, no records. Many of these individuals were enslaved, or formerly enslaved. There are also approximately 400 Tejanos, Mexicans or Mexican Americans, also buried in this section, one Asian immigrant that we know of, listed in the records for 1888, and approximately 1,400 Europeans or European Americans who were recent immigrants or impoverished. This is what we know so far. But there is far more work to be completed to undo the complacency of the past, including, and this is our task list, a 3D model populated with audited burial records, an interpretive plan with information panels for the public to understand how this cemetery came to be, an isotope analysis of the 36 individuals we are memorializing here today, a search for the descendants of these 36, scanning burial records to make digital copies available to the public, and grant writing to complete ground-penetrating radar so that we can definitely identify at least the location of these invisible graves and perhaps their headstones. Today we are completing our commitment to memorialize the 36 people who were found when renovating the chapel. We are committed to researching and telling the stories of all of Austin's city builders. We are committed to making the invisible lives of the people buried here at long last visible. It is now my great honor to introduce to you the mayor of Austin, Texas. For 3 decades, Kirk Watson has been immersed in public policy spanning local and state government in Texas. He served in the Texas Senate for over 13 years, leading on a wide range of issues. He was first elected Austin mayor in 1997, where he won praise for bringing different political sides together around transformative environmental and economic development initiatives. And in 2012, served in the Texas State Senate, he led the effort to build a new medical school at the University of Texas at Austin. Please welcome Mayor Watson.
Thank you very much, and thank all of y'all for being here. It's a real honor for me to have the opportunity to be with you today and say a few words, because this is a special moment. It's a special moment for us to reflect and recognize that our city must be accountable to its citizens, including those who were Austin's earliest citizens. Part of the accountability comes with acknowledging a heartbreaking, stained history of racism that was unfortunately foundational to the creation of this nation, this state, and this city. Some of you may have heard me say from time to time that I believe people should periodically take time to explore their core values and what they really believe. People should ask themselves if they're thinking and doing right, if their core principles are what they should be. Because people can change. New experiences influence thinking, understanding improves, beliefs shift. And I've also pointed out that many of us, especially people who look like I do, have a personal history that speaks to the crucial role of reflection. We lack experience and understanding. Our education is flawed. We've grown up in a toxic ecosystem of weakness, fear, privilege, and far too little empathy on issues of race and racism. The reflection requires honesty about our flaws and our shortcomings. It requires acknowledgement and admission of wrongs, conceding failures, hearing people more clearly, learning more intently, and seeking forgiveness. And just as a person's values can change for the better, so can a city's. Thank God. But it does require accountability, because we still see the evils of racism today in the news, in healthcare, in homelessness, in education, and in economic reports, and with our own eyes. We all, as individuals and our community as a whole, must continue to reflect, learn, and evolve. We are all capable of transformational change, as is Austin, and ideally, we should always be seeking new ways to become the best versions of ourselves, the best version of our home, Austin. We are one body and one community. We are here to care for one another and to protect each other. This monument is a symbol of remembrance, not only for those 36 reburied people, but for all the people that are buried in this section of Oakwood Cemetery. And it's a symbol of remembrance of where we've been and a reminder of what we want to be. We are not erasing the mistakes of our past. We are honoring the importance of individual lives, individual people who had dreams at Austin's creation. So let us dream well of an Austin that is the best we can be. Let us honor these lives when we are better by doing better. God bless you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe you have another commitment, and so, you know,
I would like to hear the
council
member, and then
uh,
I'll excuse myself.
thank you so much for your work. You're the first mayor who's brought tears to my eyes for good reasons. Thank you. Thank you very kindly for your words. Council member Natasha Harper-Madison represents Austin's District 1, the part of town where she was born and raised. Her upbringing endowed her with an intimate knowledge of her community's strengths and its unique struggles. Her community activism sparked Harper-Madison's interest in seeking public office, and a goal she achieved with her first campaign for city council in 2018. In 2020, her colleagues voted to name her mayor pro tem, only the second Black woman on Austin City Council to bear that title. She is a thriving breast cancer survivor and the proud mother of 4, including an Austin firefighter. Please welcome Councilmember Harper-Madison.
What an introduction. I don't have to say much when you start like that. I really wanted to say I appreciate you welcoming us to your ancestral lands. I appreciate the acknowledgement and the welcome. Good morning, everybody. My name is Natasha Harper-Madison. I am the way too proud City Council representative for District 1 right here in Austin, Texas, the 11th largest city in the nation, and unfortunately one of the most expensive cities in the nation. So I think it's one of those things when we have the opportunity to make recognition for the situation that happened here in 1914 when the construction of the chapel landed right on top of folks that are our ancestors. We deserve to know our ancestors, and they deserve for us to acknowledge them. I think the acknowledgement has to also get us to look around and make sure that for prevention of crimes like this that happened in our past, we have to know where we're going. And I look around all the time. I love my diverse community, but I also think about all the folks that I grew up with who don't live in this city anymore. And I think about the implications of that when we look at these kinds of incidents of blatant and evil, frankly, lack of recognition of our connection as a community. So I hope moving forward that we'll continue these kinds of commitments. I love how much thought went into how are we going to actively do what we needed to do to recover folks. I think the commitment to that means that we as a community, we can go anywhere together. I appreciate the time for having an opportunity to address y'all this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. And I wish I could take credit for that all by myself, but there are several people here who played a significant role in planning today's proceedings and how we responded to the terrible news. I want to acknowledge the work of Kim McKnight, who is here today, who it works with our historic resources for the Parks Department and was instrumental in writing the master plan for the cemetery that led us to opening Oakwood Cemetery Chapel, and Jennifer Chenoweth and her staff, who has done it's been a weekend of tears, but the work that she's done to execute a respectful reinterment and memorial, it just moves me to tears because you did it with such sincerity and tireless work. Many thanks to Greg Farrar and the other staff members of Oakwood who did so much to make this happen. So thank you. And finally, we wouldn't be here today without Save Austin Cemeteries. Save Austin Cemeteries pushed the envelope, made us write the master plan, and that got the ball rolling for us to be here today. And so today, speaking on behalf of Save Austin Cemeteries, we have the honor of hearing from Arro Smith, Dr. Arro Smith, a librarian and historian who is currently Secretary of Save Austin Cemeteries. He is a research interests include memory and oral histories. So please welcome Arro Smith.
You don't need them.
I do. I am Arro Smith. I am the Secretary of Save Austin Cemeteries. We're like the cemetery's booster club. We promote the cemetery by co-sponsoring programs with Jennifer Chenoweth and the Oakwood Museum Chapel and Austin Parks and Recreation. We provide docents for the cemetery tours on the weekends. We put on the big murder, mayhem, and misadventure tour near Halloween, where we take unsuspecting people looking for Halloween fun and actually teach them Austin history. But our main mission has always been to be the voice and advocate for the people buried here. Save Austin Cemeteries was founded in 2004 by Dale Flatt, Leslie Wolfenden, Danny Camacho, Kay Boyd, and other dedicated folk. Their mission was to give voice to people here whose graves were neglected. They were focusing on the things above ground that told the stories of those buried beneath the ground. And they succeeded in turning this long neglected cemetery into this beautiful place that we enjoy today. In 2007, this chapel, built in 1914, was literally falling apart. Historian Leslie Wolfington and Dale Flatt went to work to raise money to do the preliminary architectural and engineering studies. After a long, hot, dusty summer of carefully measuring, photographing, and documenting the interior, Leslie hired an engineering firm for a structural evaluation report. And Heim-South Architects did a feasibility study. Dale went to work to get the city of Austin to take notice, and Kim McKnight of the Parks and Recreation Department became an early advocate of the restoration. The cause of Save Austin Cemeteries prodding, the city drew up a cemeteries master plan that included funding for the restoration of the chapel. Now, I do not believe that anyone expected to find women, men, and children buried beneath this 1914 chapel. But when the first remains were found, the project got a lot more complicated. And it got a lot more interesting. No one wants to desecrate graves, especially not Save Austin Cemeteries. But these graves had been desecrated in 1914 when the chapel was built on top of them. We were an early advocate for finding the space near the chapel to respectfully reinter these 36 women, men, and children. And I hope the sacrifice these bodies have made during the process results in an increased understanding of the 3,000 other unmarked graves in this section of Oakwood. The scientific examination has already given us important information about their ethnicities. What the discovery of these bodies has done for Save Austin Cemeteries is refocus our attention. We had been concentrating on restoring the gravestones, the fences, the chapel, all the things above ground that tell the stories beneath. But now we are also committed to finding out what is hidden beneath the ground without markers. In addition to committing to care for this new monument, Save Austin Cemeteries will be landscaping the area with rose bushes, and we'll set out flowers periodically on these new graves. We are also committed to working with the Chapel Museum to find a way to tell the stories of all of these unmarked graves. We are financing a project with Dr. Tara Dudley to use our own research and grant-funded research from the Chapel Museum to celebrate the 3,000 unmarked graves here. These were citizens that built Austin, literally. In addition to the grand gravestones and obelisks and statuary that adorn the rest of Oakwood, I want to find a way to respectfully share the histories of these working women and men. Their stories of labor and grit and pioneer life have as much to teach us now as their more celebrated neighbors do. To the 36 souls whose bodies were unceremoniously covered by the 1914 chapel, then rediscovered in 2016, and now reinterred here, I'm sorry to have troubled your rest. I hope you have been treated respectfully. I hope you like your new gravestone. Please now rest assured that your sacrifices propelled us 21st century folk to re-examine our past, and that the disturbance of your graves will lead to the stories of many more of your friends, families, and Oakwood Cemetery neighbors finally being told. Thank you.
Thank you. Growing up in East Austin, Sarah Grace Monroe enjoyed the benefits of her family's cooking and culture. She worked as a teacher and lived abroad in England, though her current adventures are in family genealogy and preserving her history for her grandchildren. Sarah has over 40 ancestors and relatives in Oakwood Cemetery. Please welcome Sarah Grace Monroe.
This is going to be hard to hold this.
I'll hold it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Then I'm going to hold it up close to your mouth because
Okay.
that's how we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank everyone for being here. I have to admit, I've shed my tears and I've been nervous as a wreck all week. So hopefully today I've calmed down enough to tell you about it. It's kind of extraordinary because I'm still finding relatives here. I haven't found another set of ancestors, but I do have two sets of ancestors to talk about today, and some of the relatives associated with the two sets of ancestors. First of all, I want to say that I always loved my history teachers, and I love history. So most of my students didn't, but I did. So I enjoyed it. So that was fun. But I do want to say that even my name kind of threw me off into doing the family history. My name is Sarah Grace Monroe. Sarah from my great-grandmother, Sarah Jane Shackelford, who married Ed Horst. My grandmother, Grace Elizabeth Horst, and then Monroe, which I was shocked to find out I have a great uncle who is buried here, and 4 of his brothers and other relatives. They were from Gonzales, Texas. I did not know they were in Austin and buried in Oakwood, so that was a bit of a shock. So my entire name is associated with Oakwood Cemetery. Now, one set of ancestors is just across the street. There are those huge, tall monuments you can see. Louis Horst, and he spells it H-O-R-S-T, that was from Germany. There's a lot of information on him because he was a slave owner, and his son, Charles Horst, had 4 children by my 3rd great-grandmother. She was, the type person. Evidently, I always felt it was a bit of a love story because he cared for his kids. They took his last name, and he took care of them. And it's a mystery where he is buried. Some older relatives said, oh, he's in Oakwood Cemetery, but we haven't confirmed that. So, but, that's one part of the family, the Horst family. And it was really kind of touching for me during the week in how to talk about it. But, if you look at it, my ancestor lived down the street, and Louis Horst owned the land north of the Capitol all the way up to 51st Street. So in my family's oral history, it was always he owned the land where UT is now. He was his son Charles was labeled as the slave owner's son. So I heard about this all of my life, and now that I'm older and doing the family research, a lot of the things they said I have confirmed through the Austin History Center. And just to find a little bit about Louis and his wife, the family called her Mary, but her name was Marguerite. I've seen it spelled 2 different ways, or Margarita. And he came to America in the late 1830s, but he was a butcher by trade. And his sons were also butchers. So my ancestor, Charles Horst, was a butcher. And brothers, James and Louis, were also butchers. And at one time, they were the only family butchers in Austin. So I checked all of this out at the Austin History Center, and I do appreciate their help. Now, the next set of ancestors are the Shacklefords. My great-grandmother, Sarah Jane Shackelford, His parents, they're buried behind the chapel just a ways back. And I didn't know that until around 2005. And I came over, met the caretaker here at that time, and he showed me where their graves are back behind the chapel. So it's kind of funny how Oakwood plays such an important part. The next thing, the relatives here, I have, and when I wrote my family history cookbook, I wrote it and divided it up by surnames. So of course, Horson's, Shackelford were important, and Monroe's. But I found out my third great grandmother's sister is buried here. I don't know where her brother's buried, but they had the same slave owner. Frances Jane Ridge Dinsmore kept that name of that first slave owner. But her sister, and hopefully one day we'll find out if her brother is buried here too. But the thing that kind of hurt me in looking at the family members who are buried here is so many children. Some of them lived a day, some lived 10 days. And it's during that time that the least little thing, like a cold or consumption, different things that nowadays wouldn't kill you normally. But that was really hard. It's a lot of children that were ancestors, the ancestors' descendants that are buried here. One of the things I wanted to mention is, sorry, I was scared with the wind blowing, so is that the Shackelford family were actually from enslaved in Missouri, and Thomas Jefferson Wells. Jefferson was my third great grandmother's father's name. He was a Cherokee, and they always said about him he was an Arkansas farmer, but his name was Jefferson Ridge, and I don't know where he's buried. So I'm hoping that once we do some DNA tests and find out that I have other ancestors and relatives in Oakwood. In closing, I just wanted to thank all the nice people I met who are associated with Oakwood. I love Jennifer to bits and her staff and the volunteers and anybody else. I've hugged so many people this weekend, and they were wonderful, because when you're dealing with enslaved people, you hit that brick wall. That's what they call it. And you don't know where else to go. But luckily, and I have to give extra credit to Greg, that he contacted me. I post everything on Find a Grave, and he saw my third great grandmother's sister's picture on Find a Grave. And I said that she was buried in Oakwood. So that got the ball rolling. And I'm so happy he was looking. Most people don't look at Find a Grave. But I'm so happy Greg did and contacted me, because I have 5 grandkids, and I do want them to know and to have pictures. So that's one of my thoughts. I have pictures of the Horse family's children, and most of them are buried here in Oakwood, but I have their pictures when they were like from toddlers on up to maybe 10 years old. And I would love to have pictures of the adults. I don't know why, but I just like to see how they look, see if I favor any of them. And so that the quest for my family history is still ongoing. But I do want to thank everybody who's, I don't want people to think I've forgotten about their help, because it keeps me motivated. It's really difficult. And sometimes to check census records and go back decade after decade. But I do it when somebody's there, so you can do it, and give you a pat on the back or a hug and say, you're doing a good job. And I want to welcome my oldest son. He drove up from Houston to be supportive, and my niece and her son, and they're also descended from Oakwood. Oh, thank you so much. And Laura, you're lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. I appreciate you, Sarah Grace. And so, finally, we have with us a very special guest, Simone Talma Flowers. She is the Executive Director of Interfaith Action of Central Texas, and she also has extensive experience in nonprofit management. She is a member of Austin Area Research Organization and Town Lake Chapter of the Links Incorporated, as well as many other boards. within the community. We thank you for your advocacy, Simone, and for being here today. Please welcome Simone Talma Flowers.
Thank you, Laura. And thank you for this invitation to be here today. Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm Simone Talma Flowers, and I'm going to share a blessing with you. As Laura said, we stand on native land where the Coahuiltecans, Tonkawas, Comanches, and Apaches once lived. We stand on sacred ground. We stand here today to pay respects, to right a wrong that was done, and to ask forgiveness. We stand here to course correct, to pay homage to people who were buried here well over 130 years ago. We stand here knowing that 109 years ago, a building was built over them. We stand here knowing that when these people were buried, their families and loved ones did not know that their deaths would be this significant over a century later. Even in death, they are moving a community together to be better people, to see and acknowledge all wrongs, and to shine a light on past indifference. We stand here today on the sacred burial grounds of Oakwood Cemetery, in the colored grounds. We stand here knowing that in 1914, this structure was built in the colored section. 1914 was a time of segregation. People were buried in this section based on their race and color. There was the African American section, the Mexican section, the stranger section. This section did not have many marked graves, headstones, and records. So we did not know all the names of the people buried here. Yet under this chapel, there was a mix of people buried next to each other together. Today, we pay homage by dedicating these monuments to 36 people who are reinterred at Oakwood Cemetery. People of African American, Mexican, and white heritage, and immigrants. There are 12 infants, 2 children, 2 young adults, and 20 adults. We know there were once people with lives, hopes, and dreams, and come from families with hopes and dreams for them. They had families and friends who grieved for their loss. Today, we stand here with some family members, but we also stand here as their family to honor, or to grieve for their loss. And again, today we stand here with the family members, and we stand here as their families to honor their existence and to acknowledge their life. We stand here today to honor them in death. We ask for forgiveness, to correct the injustice of disregarding their burial place. These monuments will remind us to never forget and to remember what we did to them. This day has awakened in us the spirit of making things right. Thanks to those who have worked tirelessly to make it happen. May this spirit give us the power to look around, stand up, show up, and to speak up for each other. Let us commit to never disregarding a human's worth. Never think of them invisible when they are disenfranchised. Each human is special, yet each is also us. In life and in death, they show us our interconnectedness, our shared path. We thank these 36 fellow humans buried here for the awakenings you have inspired in us and the hope you have given us for tomorrow. Today, we stand to honor you, our brothers, sisters, siblings, and children who lay in this earth in their final resting place. May the earth welcome them. Let the winds keep them cool, and the sun and the moon shine light upon them. May they rest in eternal peace. Amen.
It's been a weekend. Pull it together. So here we are, all together here. We survived COVID. We survived so many things. To be here today, to use our lives, to use our breath, to commemorate these 36, whose lives we don't know, but we recognized their contribution as our former neighbors. And we recognize that in death, they will be our neighbors once again. And so the next steps are that we are going to have flowers, and flowers will be distributed among all of you to lay on the memorial. While our friend Javier Jara will be playing music to accompany the laying of flowers. Following the laying of the flowers, Minnie Wilson, the current president of the Tejano Genealogy Society of Austin, will lead a walking procession through the road to my right, through the historic colored grounds, while volunteers read aloud the names of the people buried in this section. So please follow her on this procession, which will begin right over there at the road. And so Javier Jara hails from the Ecuadorian highlands, and he has been producing and performing Latin music of all genres for all kinds of audiences, big and small, in the U.S. for over 15 years. So please welcome Javier Jara. 1896.
So usually borders are considered geopolitical constructs of between countries, but many times there are borders between cities. Like I-35 used to be the border of discrimination, and so in order to counter that with music and cultural remembrance, we are trying to do this with art and music. So this is a few sets of songs that have to do with the immigrant experience of Latin American folks living in the US right now. This is the story of Alicia from Guatemala, who likes very much cumbia and salsa, and told us her story of the night before she left her son with her mother and walk on foot and cross many borders to come here and look for a better life. This is the story of Alicia. Me han dicho que al llegar tarde o temprano sale el sol y es el sueño americano. Me han dicho que comprando ese boleto podré dormir mejor, no es un secreto. Me han dicho que al salir es un milagro. De dolor, dólares a Quetzaltenango. Me han dicho que se puede hacer por ellos el esfuerzo que realice nuestros sueños. Me voy, mamá, es por ustedes y no lloré. Cuidé a mi niño y espero el tiempo aflore. Alicia es el aliento de la vida, alía la esperanza por llegar, alinea con su fuerza y su valía, aligerando el tren de los demás. Alicia que entre púas de silencio alineaba elementos por llegar, alimenta su cuerpo de vacío, alentándose sola y nada más. Me han dicho que si llego todo cambia, corriendo va mi niño, juega y baila. Me han dicho que hay un grupo que se anima, lo que no dicen es lo duro y el mal clima. Me han dicho que se cuenta que se puede y yo no puedo al verse que se duele. Me han dicho que me duerma en el desierto y yo no duermo al ver que nada es cierto. Lo cierto es que me han dicho y yo me digo, corre y sálvate, por ello sobrevivo. Alicia es el aliento de la vida, alía la esperanza por llegar, alinea con su fuerza y su valía, aligerando el tren de los demás. Alicia que entre púas de silencio alineaba elementos por llegar, alimenta su cuerpo de vacío, alentándose sola y nada más. Alicia, Casongo Torres sabía que Mayagüez es fragancia, donde su abuela y su infancia, en que a la tienda corría por cigarros y encendía los días machete en mano, lagartijos y bananos, cultivos haciendo fuego, trópico y el tiempo bueno, de niño creciendo ufano. Borinquen está en su corazón, Jasongo bailó al compás del sol, compás del sol. Casongo Torres del campo, descalzo y sin camiseta, playas con fin del planeta, iglesia entre cerros altos, el tiempo y el sobresalto, donde cruzan los caminos con recuerdos peregrinos, este oeste amar la vida, Puerto Rico y su salida, dificultad y destino. Borinquen está en su corazón, Jasongo bailó al compás del sol, compás del sol.
Caroline Wright, Bessie Greger, Henry Grant Madison, Stewart, Mary Kennard, Tom Holland, Lily Mason, Alonzo Bennington, Felix A. Alston.
Casongo Torres escucho tu historia al tiempo y me digo que tu raíz es testigo, que tu acervo es fuerte y mucho, a la que cae mientras lucho, fronteras tan inventadas,
DJ Spicer, Fred White, Abraham Tennant, Ellie Carter, James McElroy, George Shaw, Matilda Wallace.
Borinquen está en su corazón, Jasongo bailó al compás del sol, compás del sol. Sombras de desolación, al mundo a solas. Sale un sol y es acaso el ocaso de todo lo azul del amor. Esta canción cual reloj,
James Ross,
horas
Mary
rotas,
Haskins, Calvin Alexander, Sam Hamilton, Hamilton, Sally Wright, Addison, Martha Talbert, Thomas Freeman, Caroline Robinson, Mary B. Scott, Robert Russell, Eliza Colbert, Millie Gregg, Clay Smith, Charlie Gregg, John Smith, Lucretia Burton, Howard Morris, Sam Hamilton, Charles Grant,
Jesse Adams, Mary Ware, Charles Thompson, Eddie Murray, Frederick Lewis, Willie Fairley, Bruce Still, Matthew Moore, Louis Green, Anderson Bradley, Harry Furlow, Nathaniel Ruggles, Nancy Owens, Andrew Jackson, Thomas Phil, Henry Oxford,
Amo que cantes dedica tu alma, que la música bálsamo lúcido alumbre tu ser, dejas mi vengo a cantar para ser de viento y agua, para siempre poner sobre el cielo mis pies y bailar hasta el fin. Flagrante va una flor desafiando al fuego, fragante está su color, que sucumbe al calor. ¿Quién dijo que todo está perdido? Yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. Tanta sangre que se llevó el río. Yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. No será tan fácil y ya sé qué pasa. No será tan simple como pensaba, como abrir el pecho y sacar el alma, una cuchillada del amor. Luna de los pobres siempre abierta. Yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. Cuando no haya nadie cerca o lejos, yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. Y uniré las puntas de un mismo lazo y me iré tranquilo y me iré despacio. Yo te daré todo y me darás algo, algo que me alivie un poco más. Cuando no haya nadie cerca o lejos, yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. Cuando los satélites no alcancen ofrecer mi corazón. Y hablo de países y de esperanza, hablo por la vida, hablo por la nada, hablo de cambiar esta nuestra casa, de cambiarla por cambiar nomás. ¿Quién dijo que todo está perdido? Yo vengo a ofrecer mi